Over the weekend, King Charles III and Camilla, the Queen, was officially crowned King and Queen during the coronation ceremony at Westminster Abbey, the first coronation since that of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953. Massive crowd lined the royals' route to and from the ceremony over the course of several hours.
Charles and Camilla began their procession towards the coronation from Buckingham Palace through central London in a golden carriage led by horses. About 200 members of the British military were mounted on horses as part of the procession, largely drawn from what's known as the Household Cavalry Regiment. On either side of the route to the Westminster Abbey were around 1,000 other soldiers, sailors and Royal Air Force personnel. While bells rang outside, trumpets and singing filled the inside of the abbey to mark their procession through the nave and past a large choir before taking their seats at the start of the formal ceremony. In his spoken part of the ceremony, Charles said that he has come to serve, not to be served, and to follow the example of the King of Kings. After being presented to the audience and repeatedly proclaimed as king, Charles swore a series of oaths that relate to his responsibilities in this new role. In his address to the congregation, the most senior clergyman in Britain, Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, told those there and those watching on television at home that we are here to crown a king, and we crown a king to serve. Welby later blessed oil that would be used to formally anoint Charles. As the choir sang again, Charles removed several layers of his robes and entered behind a screen where he was anointed with oil, hidden from public view but close to the altar. Over the course of several minutes, Charles was presented with several symbolic items, including swords and spears, many centuries old, ahead of his crowning. The heavy crown was placed on Charles's head as he held two golden rods, one in each hand, as he sat silently upon the 700-year-old wooden throne. Archbishop Welby shouted, "God save the King," and those gathered responded in kind before thundering trumpet fanfare. It was a colorful ceremony watched by millions of people on television and online.
Joining us now on this show from London to discuss the coronation of King Charles III is Queen Camilla, and what the world and indeed Nigeria should expect from His Royal Majesty is Chief Emeka Anyaoku, former Commonwealth Secretary General. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning. Well, first, let me start by asking you to comment on what we saw during the coronation, the pomp, the tradition, the symbolism, and the significance of that exercise, particularly if we go beyond the ceremony itself, in relation to the future of the Commonwealth. Queen Elizabeth II focused on the Commonwealth a lot, but now that Commonwealth appears to be in transition. Are we likely to see the same level of focus from King Charles III?
Well, let me say that the coronation ceremony itself was a magnificent display of long traditions of British monarchy, and I may also say the British capacity for organizing state occasions with impeccable protocols. All these were on display 2 days ago at Westminster Abbey. And King Charles III is succeeding his mother, who was totally devoted and dedicated to the Commonwealth and was held in the highest esteem by leaders of Commonwealth countries. I'm sure that King Charles III will follow in his mother's footsteps. Indeed, I related with him while I was Secretary General, and can say that his interest in the Commonwealth was as strong as that of his mother's. And now that he's the symbolic head of the Commonwealth, I'm sure that his interest in serving Commonwealth countries will be maintained. Indeed, one of the basic principles that he has enunciated for his reign is that of service. I think in that he's emulating his mother. He believes in service to the Commonwealth, service to the international community, and service to the British society. And you could see that the coronation ceremony, although it was basically a Christian service in Westminster Abbey, but it did have aspects of belief that King Charles III holds, because it was a multi-faith service. The leaders of other religious faiths were there and joined in extending their best wishes to King Charles III. And the concert of last night at Windsor Castle was also an exemplary demonstration of King Charles III's belief in multi-culture, and his son paid very handsome tribute to him for that. And so I look forward to his great service to the Commonwealth.
All right. Now, thank you so much, Chief Anyaoku, for setting the foundation for this conversation. With regards to the Commonwealth, a number of people might ask, how powerful is the Commonwealth today, as it was at the time when you were Secretary General, in terms of the participation of member nations? And what's the future for the Commonwealth?
Well, the Commonwealth remains a microcosm of the global community. And in that respect, its influence on the global community is there and is increasing. Take, for example, on the issue of climate change. The Commonwealth, before the global efforts under the United Nations, had its summit on climate change. And the leaders of the Commonwealth took back the views of the Commonwealth to their respective regional organizations. And that, to a large extent, facilitated the arrival of consensus in the global setting of the United Nations on aspects of the climate change. And I believe that the influence of the Commonwealth will continue to grow now that there are 56 members, with the latest 2 member countries joining it. The membership is growing, and I believe that the influence of the Commonwealth will be maintained and will grow as the global society tackles the issues that the Commonwealth represents.
Sir, I'd like you to juxtapose the growing influence of the Commonwealth with the type of leadership you envisage that King Charles III will give, the Commonwealth. And also, there's been a new trend with the Commonwealth that non-English speaking nations have even opted to join the Commonwealth. French-speaking nations, away from their own colonial leaning. So what type of leadership do you think this Carolean age will bring for the Commonwealth?
Well, King Charles, like his mother, is not an executive leader of the Commonwealth. The executive of the Commonwealth is the Secretary General. But the head of the Commonwealth, which King Charles III has become, will influence heads of governments at their meetings and will influence the Secretary General, who has fairly regular audiences with him, who will have regular audiences with him. And I'm sure that while his views will not be made public, the Secretary General and the heads of government will take into account his views on issues of importance to the Commonwealth and to the global community.
Well, sir, quickly, let me ask about this undercurrent of protests against the monarchy, particularly by the former colonies. The South Africans are asking for their colonial diamonds. The Indians are asking for the colonial diamond, which Queen Camilla could not use. She has to use the crown that was used by Queen Mary in 1911. What do you think about this?
I'm not quite sure that I can still hear you, Reuben. I didn't quite hear what you said about Queen Camilla, but
okay,
if you would...
I was talking
don't
about
mind
protest.
repeating that if you're looking for my comments.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I was talking about the protests from the former colonies, about how the monarchy looted Africa, looted India, and took away treasures, which some of those countries, South Africa, India, and others, are asking to be returned. Even Nigeria is asking for artifacts to be returned. What do you think of that undercurrent, which seems to give the impression that the former colonies are not excited about coronation?
I think we must recognize that the Commonwealth did not loot India or Africa or anywhere. The British colonial authorities did. Colonialism was had its own bad aspect, which are now part of history. But the Commonwealth, the modern Commonwealth, came into existence in 1949 after the London Declaration established that the Commonwealth would be an organization of sovereign states. And it is in that capacity that the Commonwealth operates. And discussions about restitution of some objects that were taken away by the colonial authorities is a matter for the individual governments and the British government, and is not an issue before the Commonwealth.
All right, Chief Anyaoku, we've talked about how excellently produced the coronation was over the weekend. However, there were some incidents that blighted what would have been a flawless coronation. One of such, the anti-monarchy protests, some of them saying, "Not my king, away with the crown." And some observers have noticed that perhaps King Charles III is not as popular as his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and looking at the beginning of the end of the monarchy, perhaps not in his lifetime or even Prince William's, but do you think that there will be conversations around bringing an end to the monarchy, especially as how expensive it is to taxpayers in Britain?
Well, the monarchy is still generally accepted in this country. Yes, of course, there were demonstrators who were saying, "Not my king," and calling for republicanism, but all the polls indicate that that remains a minority view. The issue of the popularity of King Charles is a matter that will grow with his reign. I'm sure that, like his mother did not start with the degree of popularity that she ended her life with. Her popularity grew over time in the United Kingdom and throughout the Commonwealth. I'm sure that King Charles III, that once he continues on the lines that he has begun, that his popularity will grow in this country and also in the Commonwealth and indeed beyond the Commonwealth.
Okay, but you see, this process...
One must, of course, as I said, accept that the minority view that is anti-monarchy is there. In fact, I was listening to the news this morning to hear that as many as 64 people were arrested by the police over the weekend, demonstrators arrested for threatening the peace and order of the society. But that's a view of very small minority, and you would expect that in a thriving democracy, which United Kingdom is, you have to have opposition to certain views and certain situations. And that's what we are seeing here.
But increasingly, there are nation states that don't want to be under the British monarchy any longer. Australia, for instance, is pushing for that. Jamaica...
But I've lost you again.
Okay, I said, but there are nations that don't want to be under the British monarchy any longer. Australia is pushing for that. Jamaica is pushing for that. Recently, Barbados, voted to stop the monarchy from being their head of state. What would you say about those nations living behind the monarchy, having their own true republic now, going away from this colonial past?
Well, the Commonwealth reconciled itself with republicanism by the London Declaration of 1949. And since then, of the 56 member countries of the Commonwealth now, only 14 continue to recognize the British monarch as their head of state. That's to be expected. Indeed, Commonwealth membership no longer requires acceptance of British monarch as head of state of the Commonwealth member countries. This fact was settled in 1949. And the British monarch has accepted that and will continue to be head of the Commonwealth, symbolic head of the Commonwealth, without necessarily aspiring to be head of state of Commonwealth member countries.
Well, sir, the president of Nigeria was invited. He was there. We also saw many Nigerian British or British Nigerian personalities playing a role in the coronation. Are there any ways in which the Nigerian government can use this opportunity to further deepen the ties with Great Britain?
Well, British Nigerians or Nigerian British citizens are playing an important role in this country. As you could see, the orb of office handed over to King Charles III at the coronation ceremony was carried by a British Nigerian or Nigerian British citizen, Elizabeth Anyaoku, who is a dame a dame in Britain, and there are other Nigerians, British citizens, exercising important roles in this country. In fact, one of them, Kemi Badenoch, was one of the competitors for the prime ministership of this country. and she is now Secretary of State for Trade. And there are many Nigerian British citizens playing important roles in this country, and I expect that that will continue. The world is becoming global, and people move from their native countries to new countries and try to settle there, make a living there, and make a contribution to the society where they are. And that is happening. And I believe that Nigerians or British citizens of Nigerian extraction will continue to play an important role in this country and will continue to be accepted as British citizens.
Well, thank you very much, sir, Chief Emeka Anyaoku, for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much.